Well, welcome back, everybody. I don't know about you guys. I've missed y'all. Anna and I were talking about this before service. There's something when we get a couple of back-to-back weeks of like special stuff going on that it feels like forever since our last normal youth service. But this last weekend we went to Fine Arts, and yeah, it was awesome. Y'all saw the showcases last week, so y'all already know how good it was. What was confirmed this weekend when every single one of our students received a superior with invitation, to take their entries to Orlando this August to compete at nationals. So that was awesome. There was one award that was not given out, though, and we do have to award a superior with invitation to one Mia Holvey in the category of greatest on-site cheerleader and human podium. Mia hung out with us all day, did not actually have a fine arts thing to do, but was constantly there when we were practicing in the hallways to pretend to be a music stand, stone-faced, while someone stood right in her face and practiced at her. And you are awesome. So we'll take you to Orlando and you'll compete there. It was a awesome weekend out at that. And I know 2 weeks ago, we had our senior citizen cruise night. And so it's been a minute. It's been a minute since we've been together on a normal Wednesday, and in case you don't remember, because how many of you guys have had an SAT or a big test in the last 2 weeks? All right, then I know that you guys have been full Men in Black memory wiped. At a certain point, you just expunge everything you knew and only learn what you need for that test. I know that's how it goes. So you might not remember this, but we are in a series called Dealing with Difficult People, where we have been talking about what the Bible has to say when we have relationships that are just difficult. And we started this series off talking about how we react to rottenness, and we looked at the story of David and Saul and how kind of rough things got between them. We talked about how do we deal with family a couple weeks back, and we talked about all of the things that go into that commandment to honor our father and mother, and what do we do when our family does not quite match up. And when we left off, we talked about how do we deal with authority. And today, we're going to start to wrap up this series. I hope it's been beneficial. I hope you've enjoyed it. I'm excited for what comes next. But I hope that maybe this has shown a little bit of light in your lives when you just go day to day dealing with people, because people are hard. It just is. And we've been basing all this out of the book of Luke, chapter 6, verse 27 through 31. Jesus gives us the overall for how do I deal with people that just kind of rub me the wrong way. And here's what Jesus says. But to you who are willing to listen, I say love your enemies. Anyone willing to listen today? Because this is what we're talking about. Y'all willing to listen to what the Bible has to say? All right, well then to you who are willing to listen, I say love your enemies. Do good to those who hate you. Bless those who curse you. Pray for those who hurt you. If someone slaps you on one cheek, offer the other cheek also. If someone demands your coat, offer your shirt. Give to anyone who asks, and when things are taken away from you, don't try to get them back. Do to others as you would have them do to you. Jesus is off his rocker, right? Like, this is radical, this is crazy, this is not at all natural, but Jesus has called us to something greater. And so throughout the course of this series, we're talking about how do I love difficult people in a way that is healthy for me. We don't want you to just get trampled all over. How do you deal with difficult people in a way that is healthy for you, redemptive for them, and leads you both to a toxic place, to a place where God wants to do what only he can do. And we're narrowing in on that today, because today I want to talk about how do we deal with toxic relationships. How do we deal with toxic relationships? Do you have those people in your life? In fact, I feel like I could leave it right there. Let me put the emphasis on a different syllable here. Do you ever deal with those people? You know what I mean? That's what we're talking about today. The people that just make things difficult, and not just difficult, but to a point where it's toxic. To a point where when you walk away, you feel worse than how you did before. That's what I want to talk about, because I don't know if you've noticed, if you watch TV, we tend to glamorize toxic relationships because they're fun to watch. I remember when Suicide Squad came out a couple years ago, and Savannah immediately goes, oh my God. And I remember after that movie came out, I started seeing all these fan edits of Joker and Harley. And I'm like, y'all, this is abusive. Like, y'all did not get the core of this story. This is messed up. And people like would go couples costumes for like Halloween and be like, this is the and I'm like, no, absolute. This is wrong. It's toxic. It's literally toxic. He fell in a vat of acid. It's toxic. But if you watch TV, we fill it with toxic scenarios because it's fun to watch from a distance, right? Whether it's the Kardashians or any kind of reality TV where you go, there is no health in here. I can't stop watching. I have a toxic relationship with queso. It's not healthy for me, but I can't help it, okay? But we want to talk about when it comes to our lives, when it comes to toxic people in our lives, what do we do? Because people have the incredible ability to help you, support you, pray for you, lift you up. But people also have the potential to really hurt you and drag you down. And I don't think I need to elaborate. I think we all know that. I would venture to guess, unless you've been in a bubble for the last 12 to 18 years, that you have experienced the pain of a toxic person. And so let's define what we're talking about with toxic relationships. So a toxin is any poisonous thing that causes sickness or death. So a toxic relationship is a relationship that is poison on your life and leaves you feeling less alive than you did before. You ever have those people where you spend time with them and you just leave kind of dragging? Where you leave and you just feel like someone has just sucked your soul right out of yourself. And you're like, man, why do I keep doing this? Why do I keep going back to this? Because it can affect you. 1 Corinthians 15:33 says, do not be misled. Bad company corrupts good character. You might think, man, I am so strong relationally. I have I can stand on my own. I can withstand any amount of annoyance. If that's you, we would love to have you serve in the nursery any Sunday. But you might think, man, I'm tough. People don't affect me. But the reality is when you are around people, you might think you can withstand a certain amount of toxin exposure. But the reality is it's really hard to pull people up to where you're at. It's really easy to be lowered down to where other people are. And I want to be clear, this is not like a you're better than, but when we are talking about people that pull on our spirit, man, have you ever been in a room where you are the only positive person? How many times have you left that room and you made everyone in there happier? Chances are that wasn't the case. Chances are you left there going, I need to watch an episode of Parks and Rec so bad right now. I need it just to fill back up. Goodness. 2 Timothy 2, verse 16 and 17 says, avoid godless chatter, because those who indulge in it will become more and more ungodly. Their teaching will spread like gangrene. What's gangrene? It's an infectious disease. Yeah, I mean, and so here's what it's saying, is that toxic people can affect you, and that toxicity spreads. So gangrene is, where there's an infection, there's a bacteria, and it cuts off the blood part of your body, and that part of your body will literally rot and fall off. I want to show you, but hold on, Stephen, not yet. I need the squeamish maybe not to look. If you are someone that are like, I'm gonna puke, if you're on the front row, that's fine. If you're on the second or third row and there is the back of a head in front of you, and you think you might throw up, Jessica just took a big bite of food, which feels unwise. All right, this is what gangrene looks like. Oh, boy, get ready. Where are we? You got me? Yeah, go for it, Stephen. Oh, gosh. I see where the green comes from, Anna said. So that is a part of the body that the blood doesn't go to anymore. There's no life heading to that part of the body, and it begins to rot, and eventually those toes will fall off. And so if everyone could please thank Garrett for giving us this picture of his foot to use for... no, I'm just kidding. All right, please get rid of that, please. Gross. And so that's what Paul says in 2 Timothy. Hanging out with toxic people spreads and looks like that. Ugh. And so don't underestimate how dangerous toxic relationships are in your life. It makes your life gross. And so I want to explain, I want to give you some examples of toxic people because you might be like, I feel like I get it, but I don't know. Because sometimes we're so deep in it that we're just used to it. And for some of you, I might describe a toxic person and you realize like, oh shoot, that's me. We're going to make you healthy by the end of today, y'all. All right, so here we go. Here's some examples of toxic people. Number one is the ultra negative. The ultra negative, the Debbie Downer, the one that is always complaining, always criticizing, never has anything good to say about any situation. Where you tell them like, oh man, this is such a good burger. And they're like, I know, I hope that cow didn't have kids. And you're like, why? What? I was just enjoying the burger. This is Whataburger. Why are you doing this? You're like, oh my gosh, it's such a beautiful day. And they're like, finally. It's been storming forever. And you're like, can't we just enjoy? You have people like this in your life that every time they just look for the negative and you always leave feeling down and depressed after being with them. That you can't go to them with good news because they will find a way to ruin it. Nothing ever seems to go their way. And they make sure you know it. Even though they woke up with breath in their lungs, even though they woke up on God's beautiful green earth, even though more times than not, they got a wonderful family at home, and they had 3 solid meals that day, and all they were bored was all it was, but they got to sit on their couch, their comfy couch in their air-conditioned room and watch TV, and they're like, today sucked. You're like, these ultra-negative people. Here's why it's toxic, because negativity spreads. Proverbs 22:24 says this, don't befriend angry people or associate with hot-tempered people, or you will learn to be like them, and it will endanger your soul. It's a pretty intense qualifier to put at the end there. Be careful when you are around angry people or hot-tempered people or negative people because you will become like them. And so a good measurement is how do you feel after you spend time with someone? There are some people in your life, hopefully people in this room, that you spend time with them and you leave feeling better about yourself than ever before. You leave feeling on top of the earth. That you leave and you just got a smile on your face and you don't even know why. You didn't even do anything. You were just in each other's presence. And there's some people that you leave them and you just feel like, man, I need a shower. I don't know what it is. I just need to refresh. How do you feel around toxic people when you leave them? This applies on social media too. Can I show you what has become my favorite button on social media? Steven, can we pop this button up here? This is my favorite button. There was a point where I'm like, I want all the followers. There was a point where I was like, I want these numbers to be big. And now I've crossed over to like, listen, you get 3 posts that I don't like, and then you're out of here. Because I realized that what I view online affects me, and I have control over what I see. What about uninstall? I mean, for sure, yeah. You talking about get rid of the app entirely? Listen, I work in marketing. There's only so much I can do. So just know, if you're like, hey, I sent you a message and I didn't see it, think about what you're posting. There's been times where I'll be sitting next to Jessica and there will be someone that I follow maybe a student, maybe it's just someone I knew from high school that at some point they wandered away from the church and they post something, and I'm like, ugh, you've put me in an awkward position because of what you posted. You're out of here. And you get to choose what affects you. You get to be in control of how much toxin you drink. And so if there are some people that all they do is post the worst things that are going on and you realize it affects you, get rid of it. And maybe you're like, that's a little harsh. Then mute them. Well, wherever you're at. I'm in the harsh phase. But you can mute. That's fine. Number 2 is the manipulator. These are the controlling people in your life who will manipulate you into doing things you don't want to do. They will use threats and ultimatums and guilt trips to force you into things that you don't want. Have you ever heard, I guess we're just not as good of friends as I thought we were, since you're not going to come with me to this, or you're not going to talk to me about this? You ever had that where you told them, I can't really tell you? Someone trusted you with a secret, and now you have to keep that secret, and the other person gets a little guilt trippy about it because they want to know? It's manipulation. In the book of Judges, there's a guy named Samson, and Samson is super strong, like super heroically strong, supernaturally strong. He probably had that morning routine of that dude that went viral this week. Did y'all see this? Yeah, he jumped off the diving board 4 minutes later, hitting the water. Yeah, absolutely. This guy, so Samson was this guy, woke up in the morning, took the duct tape off his mouth. If you didn't, I almost can't tell you to go watch it because it's just a jack dude without a shirt on. But he wakes up, he takes the duct tape off his mouth, he looks at the Bible, doesn't read the Bible, which was a weird choice in that. He dunks his face in a bowl of ice, and then he eats a banana and rubs the peel on his face, because that's a thing. And so Samson did that, apparently, to be as jacked as that dude was. Super, super strong. So Samson is in a relationship with this woman named Delilah, who's not great. And she has won him over because of her conversations. And so Delilah is working with Samson's enemies to figure out a way to remove his strength. And so she would sit there and she would just curl Samson's hair. She'd be like, where does your strength come from, Samson? And Samson keeps trying to get rid of it, play off the question. And one time he tells her, he goes, if someone tied me up with rope that has never been used, I would not be able to break out of it. And so she goes, oh, okay, that's interesting. Should we try it? Which, red flag, for one. And so she goes and she gets a rope and she ties him up. And as soon as she ties him up, she's like, oh my gosh, Samson, the Philistines are here. And all of his enemies jump out from the shadows. And Samson just flexes and all the ropes go, bah, 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 bah. And he ties 2 of the Philistines into a pretzel, dribbles one, chunks them out the window, turns the other one in a paper airplane, sends them through the city. Still just as strong. And yet, the way that she responds in Judges 16, verse 13, she goes, all this time you've been making a fool of me and lying to me, telling me how you can be tied up. And this is what she says in verse 15. How can you say, I love you, when you won't even confide in me? You keep making a fool of me, and you haven't told me the secret of your great strength. And she kept nagging him and prodding him all day long until he was sick to death of it. And he ended up telling her, and it ended up with him losing all of his God-given strength and leads to his death eventually. And it happened because this woman was manipulating him. And have you ever heard this sentence? If you truly loved me, you would tell me. If you really loved me, you would do this. Y'all, that's manipulation. If you've ever encountered people or dated people like this, if you're in that right now, as your pastor, let me tell you, that's a red flag. You're with a manipulator. Because they will say things like, man, if you really loved me, you would do this. If you were really my friend, you would go out with me to this place tonight. And sometimes manipulators are just super dependent. People that don't want you to be friends with anyone else, only them. And whenever you mention someone else, they get super dramatic and they become super, they play the victim and they throw a pity party so that way they could keep you all to themselves. I hate to tell y'all this, y'all, that's manipulation. It's toxic. Because what should be a friendship becomes a chore that shackles you instead of enjoying the rest of the community that God has given you. And I know this is a thing, and so I want to let you know that that's not healthy. Number 3, you've got the ultra negative, you got the manipulators, and you've got the takers. I heard a pastor one time say this: takers suck. They suck up your time, they suck up your money, and they suck up your energy. To which I thought, oh my gosh, my kids are takers. I'm exhausted. And they're toxic, and so we sent them away. No, I'm just kidding. They give me hugs, and they tell me they'll miss me when I go to work, which is a little manipulative, but it's okay. It's sure. These are the people that only call you when they want something. These are the friends that you realize that every time you talk to them, all they ever do is talk about themselves. They never listen to what's going on in your life. They only want to be around you to do what they want. They only want to be around you, and they always seem to mooch when they do. They seem to latch on to the things that you have, your popularity or your money or even your family. And once you run out of what they want, they will leave. Those are the takers. I'm going to quickly go through this. Number 4 is the tempters. These are the people that tempt you to go where you don't want to go or tempt you to do what you don't want to do, especially if they know that the choices you're trying to make and the things they're tempting you to do are the opposite of each other. And so maybe it's a boyfriend or a girlfriend that, even though you've been very clear about your intentions, just keeps tempting you to go a little bit further and a little bit further than what you had expressed. Maybe it's friends that keep tempting you to just one more drink, or just go out with us, or just try this. Or maybe it's just people that they aren't even doing it to you, but just by being around them, you can't help but be tempted. People that flaunt all their stuff and tempt you to spend all your money on material things or chase the lifestyle that isn't what God has for you. Here's the thing: sometimes a toxic relationship is not the fault of the other person. Sometimes it's just you need to realize this is toxic for me. I'm not in a place where I can be here. I need to mature a little bit because this is having an adverse effect on me. Sometimes it's not really their fault. And a lot of times you walk away from these tempting relationships just feeling unsatisfied. And the last one is this. The last difficult person or toxic person we're talking about today is the fool. Proverbs would call them the unwise. This is the person who just always seems to either, 1, be getting in trouble, or 2, be spouting stuff that's just not true. They just don't have the wisdom to make the right choices. They have a lot to say, but they have a little to think, and they will probably have a podcast one day where you can hear all of it. And it could be a lot of fun to be friends with a fool until you realize that every time you're with them, you feel like you're moving backwards. Every time you're around them, you get in trouble. Every time you're around them, you seem to have to take longer at the altar the next week because you keep hanging out with this fool. And a lot of times, fools will be against God and will poke at your relationship with God. In fact, it tells us in Romans 1:21 and 22, it describes the fool. It says, yes, they knew God, but they wouldn't worship him as God or even give him thanks. And they begin to think up foolish ideas of what God was like. And as a result, their mind became dark and confused. And what this will sometimes sound like is people that know that you believe in God, and they'll go, I don't know, man. I just feel like God should. Or I just feel like God is. And they've created their own version of God based on what they think instead of what the Word says. And it's foolish. I would use a nicer word, but the Bible doesn't, so I'm just going to quote the Bible. And so this is why it's important for us to build our foundation on the Word of God and understanding who He is from Himself and not from fools on TikTok. And especially for my seniors and my juniors, before you go off to college, let me tell you, because I went to a major 4-year college for 1 year, and let me tell you, it's full of fools, chocked full of them. And if you don't have your feet set on the proper foundation, fools will be so glad to tell you what you should believe instead. And you got to be careful who you let speak into your life. Psalms 14:1, only fools say in their hearts, there is no God. And I did not hide. Oh, you did get it. Oh, and you're awesome wherever you're at. I think he put in my scriptures today. Oh, thank you, Garrett. So this can be toxic because if you're trying to serve the Lord and be a godly friend, when you have realized that there's more to earth than momentary earthly pleasures, and you're trying not to just numb from the things of this world, and you're trying to live for greater, and you are actively pursuing a God who gives peace and purpose, but you're around people who just do whatever they want and are looking to satisfy their desires, it can confuse you. It just will. You got to be careful who you let speak into your life. Proverbs 13:20, whoever walks with the wise becomes wise, but the companion of fools will suffer harm. So what do we do with this? Now that we've gone through this, what do? I don't want you to walk out tomorrow and go to school and you're with someone and they're trying to pay for something and they're like, oh my gosh, I'm $1 short. Can I borrow $1? And you're like, it's a taker, you're toxic, just run away. Like, that's not what I want, okay? That is not the proper response to this message. How do we deal with difficult people? How do we deal with toxic relationships? How do we do life with, as Pastor Craig Groeschel calls them, relational vampires? Throughout this series, we've kind of been repeating some things, and that's because it's the correct answer throughout all of them. And what we've been talking about is that, to be honest with you, dealing with difficult people deals more with how we act than fixing them. And that first week, we covered how to respond to rottenness, and we said, don't be surprised. People are going to be rotten. You're rotten sometimes too. We're sinful people born on a sinful earth. We said, don't be spiteful and get back at them. Don't be sour and let it ruin your spirit. Don't be stupid and let them walk all over you. And don't stop doing the good that God has called you to do. All of those still prove true on how we deal with toxic relationships. But I want to give you some very practical stuff as well. Number one is this: give loving correction. Give loving correction. There might be some people that honestly don't realize what they're doing. Remember when we talked about what makes a difficult person? And we talked about sometimes it's a difference of preference. Sometimes they're still growing and you're still growing, and sometimes it's a sin issue. This fits into that second one. Sometimes people just don't realize what it is that they're doing. And for some people, it might be just as easy as asking, hey, do you realize that it hurts my feelings when you do that? Hey, do you realize that all you ever say is negative? You realize how good things are? Hey, do you realize that this whole conversation, you haven't asked me a single time what's going on with me? Sometimes they literally don't know. Hey, do you realize that when you say things like that, it feels like you're trying to manipulate me? And do you know what the two responses to that conversation are? Either one, oh my gosh, I had no idea, or two, oh shoot, they're on to me. Either way, you've brought it to the light. And so bring loving correction. And there are some people who will legitimately go, oh my God, I had no idea. I'm so sorry. If I do that again, please tell me so that I can get better. Can I tell you, that's how you take a toxic relationship to a healthy relationship? Yeah. And you will have to do this. In your most intense relationship you will ever be in, called your marriage, you will need to do this. You will need to have times where you get on the same page, where you have to let the other person know, hey, do you realize how this makes me feel? Just to get real vulnerable with you for a second, Jess and I have to do this. Y'all know me. I typically lean super optimistic, problematically optimistic sometimes. And I give the benefit of the doubt and all this. And so sometimes Jessica will come and she'll tell me about things. And sometimes it's just being in traffic, and someone will cut us off, and she'll be like, "Brr," and I'll be like, you don't know, that person could maybe. And she had to tell me, hey, do you realize that every time I bring something up, you take the side of the other person? And I had to be like, oh my gosh, I had no idea. I had no idea I was making you feel that way. I thought I'm sorry. Because there's nobody on this planet whose feelings I care more about than hers. And so she had to bring some loving correction to me. And so now when she comes to me and she says, this person, I'm like, you want me to kill him? Like, no, I'm just kidding. And so think about it in terms of you. If you were doing something that was affecting one of your friends negatively, wouldn't you want to know about it? Wouldn't you want them to tell you? If it's something that I can control, if it's something that I can adjust, I want to know. And this goes back to our original core verse of this whole series. In Luke 6:31, it says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And so I would want to know. And so bring loving correction. Make them aware. And do not feel fear at receiving or giving loving correction. But some people don't want to be corrected. And so then you move on to number 2. And number 2 is this: create healthy boundaries. Create healthy boundaries. And you might hear this and go, well, that doesn't feel very Christian. We're called to love everybody. Yes, you are. You are called to love everybody. This does not mean that everybody gets equal access to you. Those are not the same things. And this is what Jesus did. See, Jesus loved everyone equally, but it does not mean that he treated everyone the same. And he gave people different levels of access to himself. And there was one time that Jesus, as he's preparing to go to the cross, he's stressed out about it. Understandably, he's freaking out about going to the cross. And I love the humanity of Christ, that he knows our situation and he knows our emotion. And so before going to be brutally beaten on a cross, he's understandably having a hard time with it. And he goes into the garden and he prays so hard that he has a physical reaction. The capillaries burst and he begins to sweat blood. This is an intense moment. And then Jesus goes inside and he meets with the disciples in this stressful moment, and he tells the disciples what's about to happen. I'm about to go to the cross to die for all of humanity. And his buddy Peter, one of the disciples, hops up and goes, "Nuh-uh, Jesus, not on my watch. Don't even worry about it. Your mission to save mankind? No. I'm not letting you die. You're obviously worried about it. Not happening." And this is how Jesus responds. In Matthew 16:33, Jesus turned and said to Peter, "Get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns." And this is one of Jesus' closest friends, but in this moment, Jesus has to create a boundary where he says, hey, you are coming between me and what God has called me to do. And so where does he move them? He says, get behind me. I am moving you into a different area. I'm creating a boundary here because you are creating a stumbling block for me. And so do not be afraid to be a little confrontational when toxic people in your life are coming between you and God's call in your life. It's going to take some bravery, but follow the example of Christ. And don't be afraid to move them out of the way. And so remember this week that when your grandmother annoys you a little bit, you just go to her and you say, hey, you can't talk to me like that. And then you call her Satan, and we'll meet next week and you can tell me how it went. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. There's a reason we talked about family and authority first and then got to this, okay? You put those thumbs down. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people who find themselves far from God where they didn't used to be. And when I talk to them about it, when we drill down to it, they just say, I was hanging around the wrong people. They should have created a boundary. They should have let those people not influence their life as much as they were. And we said it on week 1. I want to repeat it here under the don't be stupid, is it's okay to stand up for yourself. It is okay to create a boundary if you're at a point where so much toxin has entered your life that it is poisoning you. And so it's okay to say things like, I will not let you talk to me that way. It's okay to say things like, you can't treat me that way. I want you to be emboldened to be able to say this. I said these things a few weeks ago, months ago, when we did our last series, but it's worth repeating because I want you to know that you are empowered to be able to do this, that you are not a doormat. You could say things like, that is not something I'm going to do, and I need you to stop trying to convince me, or else we can't be friends. Set up healthy boundaries. But there will be times where you try and do this, and they will still not respect it. And so then you move on to number 3. You cut off the toxic relationship. And this sounds rough, but do I need to get Stephen to put that foot back up there? Oh, no. Sometimes if it's going to spread, you got to cut it off. And when something has gangrene, that bacteria can quickly spread to the other organs and tissue of the body. And sometimes the best thing you can do to save your body and your life is to cut off the thing that is toxic. And so if there is someone that does not respect your boundaries, then you don't allow them to have access to you anymore. That's just healthy. And you say, that's not loving. It absolutely is. Pray for them, so that way it's still loving. Love yourself, too, enough to say, I can't have that person around me. If you are dating someone and they keep trying to change you or tempt you, and your small group leader doesn't like them, and your mom doesn't like them, and your best friend is telling you they see red flags, get rid of them. If there's a friend that you recognize is moving you backwards rather than forwards towards do what God did, and you tell them, get behind me. And guess what? If they ain't growing in the same direction as you, when they're behind you, what happens is you create distance. But when they're in front of you, they stop you from going where God wants you to go. And so sometimes you just need to move someone behind you and let life take its course. I've had to have this happen multiple times. Hey, I'm moving toward where God's wanting me to go, so I got to move you from a priority place in my life to when we can, and it's been a year. Because you're not going the same direction I am. And sometimes this looks as simple as, hey, please don't invite me to this stuff anymore. You keep inviting me to go to these places on Friday, and I went, and it wasn't for me. I'm not living that way. I need you to stop. Or if you want to make me real happy, hey, stop inviting me to stuff on Wednesdays. I'm busy. You want to come? You can do that. If they are a good friend, they will respect you. If they are a bad friend, they will withdraw, and you are better for it. You do not have to settle in regards to dating or friends. And I get that it's difficult, but here's the thing. This thing should be rare. Cutting people out of your life, this should be rare. If you're doing it all the time, you need to make better friends. And maybe you just need to go through a season of this. But you should not be cutting people out of your life all the time. Maybe you're leaning toxic. But you should have healthy relationships in your life. Don't make this your immediate go-to. I know Olivia doesn't like sweet tea. That's not a reason to say she's dead to you, okay? I know that Mike makes bubbles show up in my text messages as green. I'm not going to tell him he's dead to me, even though he uses that Android, all right? This is for extreme scenarios. Number 4, I'll land the ship with this. Number 4 is trust God. This was also a point in the last message. It's always a good point to put in these messages. Trust God. Here's the thing. Anyone in here a people pleaser? Where are my people at? What up, Shauna? Yeah, me too. People pleasers are especially vulnerable to toxic relationships. So I'm sorry that y'all are in the same boat as me. Samson gave up his secret to Delilah out of a desire to be loved. Can you imagine if Jesus was a people pleaser? Can you imagine if Jesus was codependent when Peter said, no, you're not going to do this, not on my watch. Jesus was like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm sorry. Listen, I can go to the cross and I can die for everyone's sins, or if you don't want me to do that, that's fine, no worries. No worries is the catchphrase of every people pleaser, okay? It's in like every one of my text messages. It's just the truth, all right? Imagine if Moses was a people pleaser, and when he walked into Egypt, he got one plague in, and the Pharaoh was like, hey, stop it. And he's like, sorry, and like walked. The Israelites would still be in Egypt. Being a people pleaser makes it really hard to stand up against toxic relationships, but Galatians says, obviously, this Galatians 1:10, obviously I'm not trying to win the approval of people, but of God. If pleasing people were my goal, I would not be Christ's servant. And so instead of trusting people, and instead of winning the approval of people, I'm going to trust that God has something better for me. When I trust God, I can trust in the call that He put on my life, even when it makes me have to leave some relationships. When I trust God, He creates a very clear path for me. When I trust God, I can trust that He loves me and wants the best for me, and that person's not the best for me. When I trust God, I can trust His word that I'm made for community, so I'm sure that He will bring about the right people, the healthy people. When I trust God, I can make Him Lord over my life and not people. And I won't allow people to manipulate or control or criticize me anymore because my trust is in God. And I'm doing what He says and not worrying about anybody else. Facts. Let me wrap us up. If you have toxic people in your life, God wants you to have a healthy life. He wants you to be full of joy. When there are people in your life that combat the fruits of the Spirit, you need to do something about it. What are the fruits of the Spirit? Joy, gentleness, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, self-control. When you're around people that make you less kind, when they're around people that make you less patient, when you're around people that steal your joy, when you're around people that are tempting you and making you lose self-control, you are not where God wants you to be. And so bring some loving correction, and maybe that'll fix it like that. If it doesn't, set up some healthy boundaries. And if that doesn't work, remove whatever is in between you and what God is calling you to do. And trust that He will give you exactly what you need. Because you don't need them. If I can get everyone to bow your heads. If you are frustrated with toxic people in your life, I want to ask you, are you looking for people to give you what only Jesus can give you? Where you've become so dependent on someone that even though they're not good for you, you stick around. The Bible tells us there's one friend that sticks closer to a brother at all times, and that's Jesus. He will never let you down. He will never leave you behind. Jesus doesn't have an ounce of toxicity on Him. And so with all heads bowed and all eyes closed, I just want to read you a verse about the friend that you have. And once you have this friend, I promise you, you don't need to depend on any other. John 15:13. There is no greater love than to lay down one's life for one's friends. You are my friends if you do what I command. I no longer call you slaves because a master doesn't confide in his slaves. No, now you are my friends since I have told you everything the Father told me. You didn't choose me. I chose you. And I want to let you know that your friend, Jesus Christ, chose you. You didn't earn His love by being righteous or doing good works. He came and He found you and He chose you. And how great that He models this loving friendship for you. Jesus doesn't want to manipulate you. He doesn't want to control you. How easy would it be for God to just snap His fingers and you do whatever He wanted? But that's not what God wants from a friendship with you. That's not the kind of friend He is. He does not criticize you. If you think that coming to the altar or feeling guilt or feeling shame, it's Him criticizing you, that's not coming from God. God's not the kind of friend that takes from you. He gives and gives and gives. And He loves you so dearly, and He wants to invite you to greater. And so here's what I want to ask you. With no one looking around, if you're in here today and you do not have a friendship with Jesus, if it feels like everyone in your life is just toxic and you need the fresh air, the fresh water, the living water that comes with Christ,